Hi, I'm Dan. Thanks for checking in on Dimgaard this week. So if you've been following, you know that on Monday nights, I'm presenting a new campaign to a group of very good players. They have a pretty wide range of experience, from very new players to people who've played like myself for decades. And they have very interesting characters. And this past Monday's session was extremely satisfying for me. It was one of the most satisfying sessions that I can remember DMing in a long time. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to delve into that and examine why that was so satisfying. I think that could be informative when you are wondering, like, why do people play Dungeons and Dragons for 30 years, right? Or 40 years in my case. What is the thing that they find so great and so fulfilling about it? So if we, and that session is posted, I recorded that session. It's an in-person session, so it's not, the production value is not great, but it's lightly edited down to a svelte 3 hours and I think 20 minutes. It's in the Dimgaard Adventures playlist if you want to review that to see what I'm talking about. All right, so what made this so satisfying for me? So the first thing is that the session hit. There's a set of technical things that can be an annoyance and kind of set you into a session in a bad frame, right? So but this one, it started on time. We have 6 players in that campaign. 2 of them couldn't make it this session, but they notified me ahead of time and said that they wouldn't be make it. And so the other 4 were here on time, and we got started on time. We have a comfortable space to play. Of course, I have control over that in this case. But if you're at a convention or a game shop or wherever, you may not have control over that. But it is important to have a comfortable space to play, and that includes things like not having dogs crawling all over your kids crying and distracting you. I know that sounds that's what I'm looking for, insensitive, but I understand that people they have kids and they want to play D&D, and people have dogs and want to play D&D, but it is a distraction when that does occur, and we didn't have any of that in this one, right? So the technical elements of the session were perfect. Then when the session, actually we get into the session, everyone does what we want each other to do, right? So they have each player has a very interesting character, right? They have different themes and different backgrounds that they have bought into and have developed. They have different goals that are significant and interesting and defined. Just the whole set of characters, all of these characters, including the 2 who are absent, though, by the way. But everyone has a very interesting character that they are very invested in, and along with that, they are invested in the story, in the ongoing narrative that binds these characters together. The players themselves are very amicable, like they work together well. There's no one who's trying to be the center of attention, and there's no one who's trying to avoid being called upon, right? Everyone is fully participating in the collaborative story building process. So that's all in place. And then once the session gets rolling, the actual elements of the adventure just felt really good, and that's not always easy to do. Whenever that's on me, right? Like I'm trying to design an encounter. I want it to be threatening, but not a TPK, right? I want there to be a certain level of suspense, and we want those to build towards in a crescendo. And so, like in this particular session, when we get to the final combat encounter, We do end up with 2 PCs unconscious, but the PCs I mean, there is enough threat there so that we're worried, right? Like we understand that yeah, this is a significant combat. It's an interesting combat because it involves burrowing opponents. But anyway, but it was not a TPK, like, so it hit, so that was really good. Like that's always going to make me feel good as the DM and the designer, when I can say, if at the end it's like, oh yeah, that was really well balanced, that really rolled out the way that I was hoping that it would. But in the end, you want the PCs to be victorious, but you want the victory to be, a well-earned victory. And that was exactly the case here. Then we get to the part that really, for me, pushed this session to the next level. So what we have here is we have like the significant bad guys, I guess, the significant opponents. They are, one of them is a frost giant, one of them is a young white dragon, and the combination of their affinity for cold has transformed this temperate temperate island into a glacial island, right, artificially. And then in subsequent to that, they have transplanted Arctic wildlife to this island. So there's a population of polar bears on this temperate island. And now then that we have eliminated the frost giant and the young white dragon, this temperate island is going, or this glacial island is going to return to a temperate island. And that is going to destroy, that it's not going to support this population of polar, and it's not the polar bear's fault. One of the polar bears is awakened just so that we can, well, I say just so, I mean, it makes sense within this context of the story, but the reason that I put the awakened polar bear there was so that the polar bear could, bring to the players' attentions, is like, hey man, you've just put these polar bears who did nothing wrong, right? They didn't bring themselves here, right? The frost giant Drew brought them here. They're just polar bears who are just kind of trying to live their lives. What are you going to do? Are you fine just taking this family of polar bears and saying, yeah, good luck? I guess you're going to, you'll be dead in 6 months and no big deal, right? Or are you going to do something about it, about this self-aware polar bear who's worried for his family? Right? And then there was also the frost giant has a son, right? And similarly, the son is a relative innocent in this, right? Like the son didn't ask to be brought by his father, the ice druid, from his homeland to this temperate island, and separated from his tribe and living in isolation as a hermit with his dad. It's his dad. So he's not really at fault here either, right? He befriended the young white dragon, and so he defended his friend whenever the PCs attacked him. But that's not really is that really a capital offense, right? To say I'm going to defend my friend whenever outsiders come and attack him. So so in the aftermath, right, when the PCs have eliminated the elements that were creating this glacial environment, this glacial ecosystem, and the awakened polar bear comes up with his family and is, hey dude, what about me? It really does. So and this is, you can see this in the players are then like, oh yeah, what is my character going to do in this situation? And if you watch the players, the characters' reactions are definitely different than the players react. There's some pretty heavy duty role playing going on there. So like, for example, specifically, Jordan, she is an environmental studies major, right? Like that is what she is studying in school. I know how she personally feels about a destroyed ecosystem and about the fact that this druid had relocated without consent this family of polar bears to this artificially constructed ecosystem. But her character is this Tabaki Drake Warden has a significantly different perspective on the environment and creatures, and is much more calloused towards their situation than Jordan the player is. And she does a brilliant job of role playing that. And I could go down the line. Jesse with his druid has I know he has a much milder affinity for environmental issues than his druid does. Similarly, David with his halfling monk, I know, has a much less sympathetic attitude towards environmental issues than what his character is portraying in this particular situation. Now, Zach happens to align pretty well with his character's beliefs on the issue. But anyway, it was just hugely gratifying to me to see the players able to say, okay, I have these feelings. I know how I look at a situation like this that is different than what my character does. And so we need to engage in this role-playing game from the perspective of my characters. Just I tell you, it just to this moment, that was 5 days ago, and I'm still jazzed over it. And so so that's the thing. And then after the camera stopped rolling, that we had like out of game discussions, and I could tell that that particular situation really did have the players considering other things in the real world from the perspective of like, well, yeah, things. What do you do whenever something is not someone's fault, and a bad situation has been engineered, right? Like what is your obligation as someone who is participating in engineering that bad situation to the people who are negatively impacted by, or creatures, I guess I should say, who are elements who are negatively impacted by that. Do you have any? And so I don't know if you've noticed or not. We don't use alignments. Like no character at any point in this campaign, and this has been true for me. Like as soon as I opened up the 5th edition player's handbook and saw that alignment was now an optional element. I've hated alignments for years. I just felt it was a blunt instrument, and that led to bad role playing. And so, when you look at this situation, and it is a much better, much more thorough and fulfilling examination of exactly what your character's temperament is than simply declaring an alignment at creation, right? It really was just a wonderful exploration of this. How do I consider the nuances of my character's motivations and outlook on other creatures, and then say, oh yeah, he's lawful evil, right? Or oh yeah, he's chaotic good. And like I say, I wish I wish I could achieve this in every session I DM. And I try in the material that I produce so that every session has that capacity, right? So that if the players are inclined and the DM is inclined and the stars align correctly, that it will roll out that way. And I will say also that I get certain feedback from people who have used Dimgaard that's very, very reassuring to me on that point. So anyway, I don't know how useful this is. I don't know. This was more of me just indulging a moment where I was really excited about the game, and so I appreciate you hanging in there. And you may have opinions on this, right? Like you may believe that that I am adding a layer of unnecessary complexity to what should be a pretty simple dice rolling game or whatever. I don't know what your difference of opinion is, but I would like to know if you have a differing opinion. If you have a confirmation, if you're like, oh no, Dan, I agree with you. I've experienced that too, and I think I agree with you. That's what makes D&D so great. You know, chime in with that too. That would be very reassuring to me as well. I'm posting my social media contact information on this video, as I began to do with all of these videos. If you found this video interesting or helpful, and helpful, both, then please hit that like button to help the algorithm, help it get seen by more. And you can always subscribe so that you don't miss these as they come out every week. And so thanks again for tuning in, and I will see you next week.